Buff Nation, what's going on? Hope you guys are having a wonderful July 4th weekend. Wanting to take a look at Colorado's slate for future opponents and talk about the pros and cons of this. This might be the last time we play Nebraska for quite a while this year, and this is kind of a bummer. We saw that we took an 8-year break from the rivalry until we had that home and home in 2018 and 2019, and then, of course, we've had the home and home most recently that started last year and will conclude this year. And ultimately, especially after hearing Matt Rule's comments recently on the Joel Klatt show talking about Colorado and just how beneficial the rivalry is, I'm really hoping that there's an opportunity that CU and Nebraska can find some sort of agreement to have the rivalry come back at a little bit more of a consistent rate. But wanted to take a look at both Colorado's future opponent list as well as Nebraska's as well to figure out where there might be some possibilities. And I have a question for you guys. You can see on the list, we'll get to it, that Colorado State is back on future schedules here starting in like 2029. My question to you guys is, hey, would you get rid of that for replacing it with Nebraska? My answer is yes. I'll get into that here in a bit, but let's go ahead and break this down. So, of course, this year we got North Dakota State, Nebraska, Colorado State there in the top right or top left. And then next year, Georgia Tech, Delaware, Wyoming. And we have some interesting opponents moving on. In 2026, Georgia Tech, Weber State, Northwestern. And then in 2027, Colgate, Northwestern, Northern Illinois. Finally, in 2029 or 2028, this is our last year that we have that full 3-game schedule already slated. UMass, Florida, and Northern Colorado. And then in 2029, things start to open up a little bit more. Florida and Colorado State. Then 2030, we have home and home starting with both Missouri and SMU, and then Colorado State there as well. And so forth. We got some other matchups against UNC, North Texas, home and home, and then 34, 37, and then 38, you got Colorado State. So, as we get into the later part of this decade, there's definitely a lot more potential for, and the starting of the 2030s, for us to have a rivalry with Nebraska. Now, if we go ahead and look at what Nebraska has, UTEP, Colorado, Northern Iowa this year. Next year, they got Cincinnati, Akron, HCU. I'm not sure who HCU is. 2026, Ohio, Tennessee, North Dakota. 27, Northern Illinois and Tennessee. 28, UTEP, South Dakota State, Arizona. And then 2029, they start a home and home with Oklahoma. They have some other Big 12 opponents throughout their remaining scheduled dates. They have not a home and home, just a matchup against Arizona in 2031, Cincinnati in 32, Oklahoma State in 34, and the second part of that home and home in 35. There's a lot of room, more so on Nebraska's end, to take on a Colorado matchup than CU has right now. Now, you see sometimes in the future, opponents will cancel certain agreements or home and homes that they have with certain opponents. Sometimes that has a little bit of a buyout attached to it, like we've seen with Ohio State, and I think Washington did that last year. I wonder if that changes a little bit because they're both in the Big Ten now. But my question to you guys is, hey, at the end of 2020, of the 2020 decade, in 2029, we have Colorado State. 2030, we have Colorado State. Could you potentially see that being moved out for Nebraska? I think ideally I would have loved to see that. But that would also leave Colorado playing potentially, like in 2030, 3 Power 4 schools in their non-conference. I don't think that that's probably going to be feasible. Usually you see maybe 1 or at max 2 opponents, just like we saw this past year with TCU and Nebraska. Maybe we could cancel something that we have going with Florida, but I would like to see how CU matches up against an SEC opponent like Florida. Maybe we could swap out Northwestern for Nebraska here in the near future in 26 and 27. I think that would be really great. Maybe they would be willing to swap out a North Dakota or Ohio in 26 and then add us to their slate in 27 with Northern Illinois, a G5, and Tennessee. That would be very interesting. But right now, this could be, at least on my end, this is a little bit of a cause for concern just because I've enjoyed having this rivalry back. Of course, I don't think CU and Nebraska realistically need to play every year. It would be my hope that they could be a non-conference every year, but we've seen rivalries like this kind of die with the conference realignment, most notably, of course, Texas A&M and University of Texas over the last decade or so after A&M left for the SEC. That rivalry will be back until we'll see if A&M tries to jump for the Big Ten. I guess that's the rumor now. But my question to you guys is, how could you see this rivalry coming back? Again, I feel like it's beneficial for both schools to have. I think it's good for both programs, puts them both in the national spotlight. This is a rivalry that everybody pays attention to, even in the past when the teams haven't been very good. Now with Nebraska, I think taking a step forward this year, as well as Colorado taking a step forward this year, the potential for high viewership for this rivalry is only going to go higher and higher. You would love to see them figure this way out, or figure a way out somehow, because I feel like this is beneficial to most of the schools, or both of the schools involved. So y'all let me know your thoughts. Are there any other opponents that you would like to see on the schedule here in the future for the Buffs in terms of non-conference? I think one fun one would definitely be Florida State. They would be somebody that I would definitely be interested in playing. And even though they haven't been much of a rival to us, it would feel fun going against the Oregon Ducks again. Hopefully with the better squad, than we had last time. Maybe playing the University of Oregon later on in the future. I think that would be awesome to get a rematch between Dan Lanning and Coach Prime, a rubber match, a grudge match. I think that would be really great for college football. So, yeah, that would happen in like 5 years or so. So my hope is that Coach Prime is still here and in 2030 and beyond. I think that would be very, very nice. So y'all let me know your thoughts in the comments. Really appreciate you guys as always. Be sure to check out part 2 of my Shedeur Sanders versus Arizona Wildcats film room that I posted yesterday. I'll link that in the comments and description as well. I'll be back probably with part 3 tomorrow. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate you guys as always. Have a wonderful weekend, and Sco Buffs.